Hi, everybody. So today I want to go over a little organizational chart that I put together for students to use in the college process. Um, Basically, how it's going to work is there's several boxes, and you can make as many copies of this form as you need. I have turned it into a fillable form, so you could do it on your iPad or on your desktop or laptop at home. And basically, this is going to serve as an opportunity for you to put down the information that is needed for your application process this fall, and it'll help you organize that process going forward. So, for example, you would start on the left-hand side with the college name. When you're doing this form, I think the easiest thing to do is start with the names of the schools, get those all in there, and then fill everything in and afterward. So I'm only going to do a couple examples for the sake of time, but if you do have questions about how to find something, I can obviously help you with that if needed via email. So let's do, for an example, let's do with Columbia University to start. I have Columbia up on my Common Application, so I'm going to start with Columbia University. All right. And I know Columbia is a Common Application school. And if you're not sure if a school's on the Common App, you can obviously go into the Common Application and hit search. So this is my Common App. You can see I have Columbia added there. But if you're not sure if a school's on here, you go to the search tab and you type in Columbia. And you'll see as you type that in underneath, schools auto-populate, and I already have a check mark next to Columbia University, New York. So I'm going to go into my college tab for the rest of the information, and you can see the next thing it wants to know after Common App is the decision type. So this is where you have to make a choice on how you're going to apply. So again, they haven't updated the deadlines for fall of 2021. That'll happen in August. So after August 1st, these things will update along with supplemental essays and everything else. But for the time being, this will serve. So for students that were seniors this year applying, the early decision 1 deadline was November 1st, and regular decision, you can see here, was January 1st. So the only option if you're applying to Columbia University is early decision or regular decision. So you can't put down early action, you can't put down restrictive early action or rolling. Columbia has early decision or regular decision. Conversely, if we click on Hofstra here, you could see Hofstra has early action, they have early action 2, and they have rolling admission, which basically means that you can apply anytime and they'll make decisions on a rolling basis. Early action has set deadlines. The difference between the two, if you're asking which one is better, early action may be specifically for certain programs, so they want you to apply by 11/15. That's important, if you're applying to something such as the 4+4 program here, and most of those notes are listed underneath. So you could see Hofstra 4+4 BA to BA or BS to a MD program, you have to have everything in by January 15th. So if you were doing rolling admission, yes, you can apply hypothetically up until the summer, but you need to have everything in by January 15th for this application. It needs to be submitted. So if that makes more sense, we'll move on. So let's say with Columbia, I'm going to do regular decision. So that's RD. And then the deadline here we know is January 1st from what we saw. And I have to say, from year to year, these are pretty consistent. So, if you're looking at it and saying, well, I don't know if it's going to be January 1st next year, typically from year to year, it's November 1st, January 1st. This is my 6th year now going into Malloy, and they've been the same deadline since I've started. So sometimes things change, but not that often. The next thing is letters of recommendation. So back on the Common App, we're on Columbia again. And you can see we picked that regular decision deadline. Underneath that, you'll see the application fees, standardized test policy, which will be changing this year. And that's something we can talk about in college guidance class. But some schools are going test optional. Columbia actually just announced today that they will be as well. So for this coming year, the fall of 2021 applicants, you can actually apply test optional Columbia. But recommendations. So you'll see school report required. We take care of that in the counseling office. Counselor recommendation required. So that's a guidance counselor letter. That comes from either your college counselor, your peer group counselor, or somebody in the guidance office, your personal counselor as well. And then you'll see here it says teacher evaluations. Those are teacher letters of recommendation. They require 2. All right. So They have 2 and then 0 optional. So you're going to be able to submit 2 letters of recommendation to Columbia. So if you go back here, you'll see letters of recommendation required. My suggestion is to type how many guidance letters you need, 1G, and then 2T. And the great thing about this is if you have 1 guidance letter and 2 teacher letters, these same letters will be applicable to every other application that you have. So you probably will not need, unless you're applying to some specific schools, more than 1 guidance counselor letter and 2 teachers. So that's to basically satisfy all the letters that you need for your applications. Personal statement required. So here's a trick for this one. You want to know if you need the essay, you can go into the Common App section. And as long as your school is added, you can click on Writing. And you'll see here at the top, these are all the schools that require the personal essay. So you can see on my list, I have 4 schools. Columbia, Hofstra, and SUNY Cortland require an essay. Penn State does not. So for Columbia, I'm going to put yes, personal essays required. And then I move on to the supplemental essay part. And again, you're going to want to do this in the My College section. Go to Columbia, and you can see they have a writing supplement. You click on questions, and then you just count the questions. So here you can see Columbia has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 supplemental essays. Now, I think you might be looking at that and saying, wow, 6 supplemental essays is quite a lot. But if you look at some of these questions, you'll notice that they're not long, drawn-out questions that you have to write a formulated response to. Some of them are lists. For example, list the titles of required readings from courses during the school year or summer that you enjoyed most in the past year, 150 words or less. So that's a list. It's not something that you have to write this long, drawn-out essay for. So you have to read through these questions and see how they work. So for this one, we would put 6. And you want to put in any additional or special note. So I can't really think of anything at the moment for Columbia, but for example, if you were doing Penn State, you might write in that on Penn State's page, you'll notice Penn State takes the common application. However, under other deadline information, Penn State wants you to fill out on their website what's called the SRAR. That's a self-reported academic record. That's a requirement for Penn State. So you might want to write need SRAR report, right? And that's something that you'll have to fill out after the fact, basically you filling in your grades. So for the special notes section, I have that in there so that if there's something that comes up, for example, if you were applying to the University of Scranton, where I used to work, they really want you to apply early action, which has a November 15th deadline if you're thinking about applying to nursing. So that would be a very popular program at the school. They want you doing early action. You might put that in the additional notes, and you would mark down for your decision type early action and the deadline for that. So you're going to find a lot of this information on the Common App. I still suggest going on schools' websites and checking to see if there's anything special. For example, there are engineering schools that would like to see a letter of recommendation from a math teacher or a science teacher. In some cases, it's required that you have one from those teachers. So it's important that you know these things before you go in and apply and before you ask for letters of recommendation. So when you're making your school list over the summer, use this chart and make use of this special notes section. All right. The last thing is a CSS profile. So this is a financial aid thing. Every school would want you to fill out the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, which is why I don't have a section for that on here. But some schools also require what's called the CSS profile. So if you need the CSS profile, you want to go into this section and check. The easiest thing to do here would be to search CSS profile schools, and you click on this participating institutions link. It's actually run through the College Board, the same people that do the SAT and the AP. So if you scroll down this list, you can see if your school's here. And I'm looking for Columbia right now. And as I scroll down, you'll see Columbia U, okay? So Columbia U is in there. And as you can see here, this yes is, do they require the CSS profile for domestic students? So that is a yes. So we'll be going in here and clicking yes. And the reason I have that here is in the past, I've noticed a lot of students that have missed this criteria for financial aid. They fill out the FAFSA, they submit their application, but they forget about the CSS profile. So I really think this is important that you look for this, because if you miss it, you won't be considered for institutional aid from Columbia, and that could be the difference between you attending or not attending. So it's really important that you check this and make sure that if a school requires the form, you have it down, and then plan to complete that form alongside your FAFSA before the financial aid deadline. And all financial aid deadlines are going to pretty much correspond with the decision type deadline. So if regular decision is January 1st, typically the FAFSA and CSS profile also need to be completed for financial aid by the same date. So you want to try to get all of this stuff down so you can submit it ahead of time. That way, if there is an issue, you can go back and fix it before the actual deadline. That'll ensure that you're looked at for financial aid as well as admissions, at the right moment. If you have any questions about this form, about filling it out, please reach out, send me an email. I'd be happy to help. I know that I'd use the Common App as an example, but if a school's not on the Common App, the best way to get the information is to go to that school's website. All right, so different schools have different rules, and if you have questions about anything, I'm here to answer them. Thank you very much for listening, and again, hope to hear from you soon.